feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled TIFF review. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rorabeck, alongside he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchen.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm good. We've been reviewing some stuff today, catching up with some content that we have put aside the last day or so, just to take some time to get sort of back at it and refreshed, and I think that's a good thing, especially when you're in the home stretch of a festival that does take its toll. Everybody makes the joke, it's like, oh, don't exert yourself too much watching movies. There's still a lot to consider when it comes.
I hate that. Yeah,
I know, and it happens. But in terms of the production of this, where you have to not only do the audio, the edits, but also the video portion. And for the most part, what a lot of people don't realize is that my internet sucks, so usually I'm out of sync just slightly, so you have to kind of put things back together. There's a lot of moving pieces,
so it is nice to get like
off.
a little day off. We should have gotten some of these reviews up a bit earlier, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. I mean, we control.
It's still going up, and
we're our own bosses here, so we can put them up whenever. But yeah, it was nice. Like, I only watched the one movie yesterday, and even then, I wasn't sure if I was even going to do that. But I just kind of lounged. I caught up on like YouTube and stuff because I just wanted some more and podcasts. I was just like, I'm gonna just throw on some silly stuff that I don't really have to think too hard about. But
you're a big fan of the Silly Putty podcast.
Yeah, is that an actual thing? I don't know.
It should be now, though, and if it is, copyright.
But today we are reviewing a movie we did catch up with in the last couple days, the National Geographic film The Rescue, which is about the Thai cave rescue that happened in 2018, correct?
Yes.
It was fun watching this with Nevis because she was like, I don't remember this. And I was like, how do you not remember this, Nevis? Like, it was like, I remember it being everywhere. But again, I'm always on Twitter. So like, I totally understand someone who's like, maybe just not extremely online. But
it's amazing how much, like a news cycle, after an event has happened, how quickly people move on.
That's true too.
To the
That's
next
a great
thing,
point,
right? Like, it's, I mean, I remember it as well, but I think the biggest testament to this movie, which I mean, you kind of summed up what the film is about. It's from the point of view of the divers who sort of, were the ones behind the rescue and sort of figuring out how to maneuver, these intricate caves filled with water and save this, Thai soccer team, these kids and their coach. The biggest testament and strength of this movie is, you already know the outcome, or at least you have an idea of what the outcome is.
Yeah.
But it's still able to hold you in suspense and feel very, very harrowing in the moment, as though it is unfolding in real time. And while I have some criticisms towards some of the reenactments, I thought that this laid out sort of the events of what happened and how it happened, and what a combination of both luck and finding the right people to attempt such a rescue mission is, and how much you look at, like, they brought in the Thai Navy and they couldn't figure it out, so you get a bunch of diving hobbyists.
It's like a ragtag Ocean's 11 style team, like,
who are all kind of like a little bit introverted and antisocial, and
it's a wild story.
Really. And it's laid out really, really well. And I think my biggest regret of the film is that I didn't see it on a big screen. I think this was one of those movies where I think it would have been amplified in terms of the tension and anxiety, even more so than just watching it on a screener, which it still works. But I look at this and I look at their last movie, which, the duo directed Free Solo, which I think that movie is more effective watching that in a theater as well, because
which is why it got an IMAX release, right?
That movie exemplifies your fear of heights as you follow the main subject. This exemplifies your fear of claustrophobia.
Dude, yeah, there was a couple sequences, and I am a little claustrophobic that really got to me. And yeah, I'll echo what you're saying. Like, we're in a cave, but I totally agree with you. I think Elizabeth Chai Vishelli, I think is, or did I mess that up? But we just practiced it, and then my mind immediately goldfishes, and I forget. I apologize. And Jimmy Chin, I think they're like two of the best doc filmmakers that working, that can make you feel tension for something you completely know what's going to happen, and that either, in this case, it's not a spoiler, everyone survives, but like
Well, there
oh,
is one
everyone, sorry,
exception. Yes.
from the soccer team, my apologies, there is a death, and it's actually quite sad, and a horrible kind of sacrifice that
One of the former Thai Navy SEALs, who's brought back in to help, sadly loses his life in the process of trying to get these kids out. And
mhm.
but yeah, in terms of rescuing these kids, this is almost an impossible situation to pull
and
off.
And then, yeah, just the way that, from the filmmaking, both in Free Solo and this, like, it's, again, you know the outcome, but they find a way to still make it gripping and tense, and your palms will be sweaty, or you'll feel kind of like a moment, even it's not even part of the actual rescue, but you're seeing just kind of the footage of what these guys do in their cave dives, and sometimes pulling themselves through these spaces in the cave that is just so
Ugh,
so tight and awful that you just like, and if you're afraid of just darkness and emptiness like that, I
and
think
they love
that's
it.
kind
That's
of,
the other thing
yeah, which
too.
is wild. And yeah, I just thought the movie was really well laid out, and as it went through the days and kind of showed you how absolutely insane this story was, and how long it was too, right, for these kids in this, and their coach, to be stuck in this cave. And I just thought it really did a good job, both with the the talking head kind of like, let's describe what happened kind of thing, and then some of the footage on the ground. And I see what you're saying, Eric, and I'll let you jump into it when it comes to the reenactments, but I actually thought they did a pretty good job um editing together what was, actual footage and what was a reenactment, and kind of putting it all together. Cause like and added to the kind of gripping nature and the free flow of it, that I never felt a disconnect when it went into a reenactment where it felt like a bad TV documentary where it was so clearly a reenactment or something like that, or one of those bad crime shows or
Yeah.
something like that.
Tonight on Dateline.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like, and I never took me out of it, so I felt like it actually worked really well altogether. And ultimately, it's just hearing the story, because you, again, I knew of it, I followed it on Twitter, I knew exactly kind of what happened, but I never maybe went deep into it, and knew the story of these guys and how they came together, because I think that was the wildest part of this is, like you mentioned, these are just guys that really love cave diving. They're not necessarily paramedics, or even people who their job is to go save people. They just go cave diving, and they're really good at it. So it's just a really wild thing to see. Here's the we need the best guys at what they do, and you just bring in this ragtag
It's
team, and you're
essentially like
almost like,
Armageddon
yeah,
almost.
yeah, and it's almost, it's like, because you know what happens, you can kind of laugh at stuff like that,
Yeah.
where it's
But
just,
in the
it's
moment,
such
and the
a
way it captures in the moment, you
mhm.
feel that stress and tension, because there are certain levels of how the film sort of reveals certain aspects of the story, because you got to think, okay, not only are they hiring them to kind of assess the situation, but then also you have to kind of look to see if the kids and the coach are still alive, and sort of that process. And then, also sort of looking at it, this is basically an underwater maze. And so then there's the conversation of like, how do we get them out? And then time is
And
not on
how
their
they do is
side.
just wild too.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't realize that that's how they got them out.
It
And
also
I
frightened me, thinking that you could choke on your own saliva and die, because the way that they get these kids out. And it's also, again, like, the way that they talk about it, it's like, yeah, this was never going to happen. It's like, okay, we're going with this idea. And it's almost like, are you kidding me? And it,
Yeah.
it's to sedate the kids, because as they, they also rescue a bunch of, what are they? Like hydro workers, or like,
Yeah, kind of like they
yeah,
were just government workers that were in
that
the
were
cave
also
to try to,
trapped
yeah.
as well, and they were much closer to the exit, but the struggle to get a fully grown male out of this situation, as they were, probably terrified, having to go through the crevices and cracks
It
and
was
being
only a
kind of dragged through.
45-second swim, but they were like scrambling because they panicked,
Yeah,
right?
and so they're thinking, okay, well, these kids, like, the distance is almost 3 hours,
One way.
one way, and so how do you do that? And they're children, um, and so the idea to sedate them is like,
Is the most is the most wild thing I've ever heard in my life.
yeah,
And
and not
like
just not just once, like they have multiple syringes in case they need to do it again halfway
because they
through.
wake up halfway through and
Yeah,
they had to do it multiple times because the sedation would only last, an hour or two or
and the
whatever.
complications of that, and how, like, if one thing goes wrong, this whole thing just becomes a nightmare, and they could lose lives because of it. And yet, with all that pressure, this unlikely group of heroes pull off the impossible, and it does make you cheer, because there are moments in life that are so sad or tragic or inescapable from, you know pulling off, the harrowing feats that so many do. And this does lend itself to the quote unquote Hollywoodized movie that we're
Which we
going
are
to get
getting.
on Netflix next year, from one auteur filmmaker, Ron Howard, which is from the point of view of the kids, even though you have actors like Viggo Mortensen and Joel Edgerton and Colin Farrell in the diver roles. This is more specifically on the divers themselves, but you get a really thorough layout and understandable layout of what's at stake in this movie. And yeah, it's pretty thrilling. It's hard not to recommend this movie, and if you can and feel comfortable enough to see it in theaters when it comes out, if it's in your area, um I couldn't imagine how much more of an experience that would be, watching it on a big screen.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm sure it'll get maybe a similar release to Free Solo as well, and it'll end up on Disney Plus, I'm sure too, because of the National Geographic angle of it. But yeah, it's an easy movie to recommend. I think I totally again agree with you, Eric, where I just think it's thrilling, but also gives you details about the story that I never read anywhere. Maybe just because I didn't do enough research myself, because I get most of my news through Twitter. So I knew they saved all 13 kids and the coach, but and I knew about the man that unfortunately passed away, and little details of the story that way. But I either forgot or didn't read that they sedated them, and I just like some of that stuff was just so wild, and to see them talk about it and what they were feeling in those moments, and just that you kind of just have to, I have to do this, like even though you're terrified and you've never really done anything like this before, you're just a cave diver who likes to explore caves. But these guys come in, like it was just even seeing their name cards as like cave diver slash, you know like physician or whatever, or cave
Yeah,
diver
well,
slash,
Dr. Richard
yeah.
Harris, I think, is
um
one of the most interesting ones, because he comes up with that idea, and even he's like, this is just the most
this is,
ridiculous thing
yeah.
ever, and I was just kind of pulling this out of my ass. But then there's an emotional sort of aspect to him as well, because his father was
Oh,
also a
right, yeah.
doctor, and then,
Yeah.
as it's revealed, he lost his father the day that they saved all these kids, and sort of like
But
what
just the way
that
that
feeling is like.
the way that he pursued through that, I think is just lovely as well. But then like, or you'll have a guy who is just like a factory worker or a whatever worker. Like they just had normal jobs, right? And the one
Yeah.
guy's like, I had to go ask my boss for time off because
Jeez.
I had to go save these kids in Thailand. And it's just like, oh my God, I couldn't have, like, that's just, it does lend itself very well, like you said, to this very cinematic kind of story, because it is just something, it's one time in real life where everyone came together for this handful. I know they're children, which is, I think, a big part of it, but this
And
handful
a
of
lot of them don't
people,
like kids.
and
Like, that's the other thing as
yeah, they
well.
don't have children, or they don't even like kids, but like, it's just the one thing in recent memory where you had, different governments come together, different countries come together, different groups of people all come together and spend almost 3 weeks and a ton of resources, thousands of people, a lot of time and money to save 13 people. 14, is it 13 plus the coach, or
It's
12 plus the
13.
coach?
Yeah, it's
13
13.
plus the coach, so
Yeah.
14 people. It's just it makes you feel like, again, we're going through a time right now where it feels like we all can't come together and agree on that we need to save lives and we need to do this and come together as, an earth and humans. We've mentioned humans many times over the reviewing today, but just, and you see this to come together for 14 people, because I feel like it could have just been so easy to be like, it's a lost cause, it's 14 people, like we can't spend this much time
Well,
and
also the Thai
money.
government, right? Like,
Yeah.
the Thai government also plays a part in sort of being a bit of a hurdle where, they want to be the ones to save the kids and the coach, and to use it as promotional material and press, and sort of get that across, and sort of having these divers brought in. They're first just really brought in as consultants and nothing more, and sort of seeing the bureaucratic aspects of sort of maneuvering that. That's interesting as well, because maybe they could have gotten something done sooner if the government got out of their own way, and sort of put the kids first, where they're thinking, okay, publicity wise, we want the Thai government to say that we saved our own.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought that was an interesting angle as well. But yeah, I really liked it. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's really, really solid. And like Eric mentioned, I think you should try to see it in a theater if you can, but it's still very effective at home.
Yeah, I'm also going to give it a 4 out of 5, and I think it's one of those movies where um it's definitely going to keep you on the edge of your seat.
Hmm.
And I still am baffled that they were able to pull this off. And again, like, a lot of these guys, even though they're feeling the anxiety and the pressure to save these lives, and they have these lives on resting on their shoulders, there's something really fascinating that made me even think about First Man a little bit, with the way that Neil Armstrong was depicted in it. They're very cool, calm, and collected. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know how anybody could look at a cave that you have to wiggle your way through and be like, yep, I'm excited for that. and
Yeah.
and I don't know how these guys just love that. But then again, I mean, it does go into their backstories of guys that are kind of you know growing up
Outcasts,
feeling
and yeah.
completely like outsiders. And
And they just, yeah, I loved that conversation too, of like, a lot of them had the same point of being like, no one bothers me down there. Like, I just get to be in my own little world, and like, and it's quiet, and I get to just explore, and I just really love it for that. And you're just like, all right. And then it's just that passion led to this moment that they were able to save these kids. And it's so wonderful. But yeah, really, really solid. So thank you all for listening or watching. Eric and I are covering the entirety, not the entirety, but as much as we can, of the Toronto International Film Festival this year. So you guys can check out all of our reviews in audio form over on the Untitled Movie Reviews podcast channel. You can find it on all podcast services, or on YouTube. Just search for Untitled Movie Podcast or Untitled Movie Reviews, and you should find us there. If you want to see our beautiful faces while we review movies.
ugh.
Oh, I don't know why you would want to, but it's a different option. You can throw it on your TV, on your phone, anywhere you like. One-stop shop for everything. Head over to Untitled_movies over on Letterboxd. You can find our links to all of our social channels, our star ratings, all that jazz. So go over there. And as always, my name is Matt Rorabeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all the social medias at Matt Rorabeck.
And I'm Eric Marchen. You can find more of my video reviews at rogerstv.com/cinemascene, and on the social medias at em6211.
Until next time.
Can't wait for 13 Lives, directed by Ron Howard.